Yeah. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for this introduction, and also congratulations for the event that you're organizing. So please allow me. I don't have very good internet connection because we have a meeting with the regulators in Italy. Please let me know if you can't hear me or you can follow my presentation. So I have one presentation. Can you please see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I have two subjects that I will present today. One is of the challenges of the European electricity market design and how we see it as a Hellenic energy regulator through the process until they were finalized, and what are now the main challenges within Greece. And also I will discuss about the consumer place, an initiative that we have undertaken and developed step by step over the last years towards engaging consumers in energy regulation. So this is exactly the table of the contents on these two subjects. So let's go directly to those two issues. First of all, about the EU electricity market design. As you know, after several months and years of discussion with the EU and following the energy crisis, in March 2024 and May 2024, the Council adopted the remit regulation as well as the electricity market reform, following discussion within the Council and the European Parliament, as well as... Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. You need to full screen your presentation. Μη φύγετε να το εξηγήσετε.
Yeah, I have done it. I saw full screen.
Because we cannot see your slides changing. Is that the problem? Αν πείτε το και στα ελληνικά.
Κάντε stop share ξανά την παρουσίαση.
Okay.
Κάντε το share από την αρχή, γιατί βλέπουμε την άλλη οθόνη εμείς.
Okay. Τώρα, να το κάνω full screen. Το βλέπετε?
Το βλέπουμε, αλλά όχι full screen.
Τώρα είναι full screen, σωστά?
Όχι, σε εμάς δεν είναι full screen, οπότε κάντε stop share και επιλέξτε το screen στο κουτάκι που σας βγάζει και λέει share.
Okay. Το screen πάνω, okay.
Ναι.
Ωραία, okay. Και όχι το file. Ωραία. Τώρα βλέπετε την τρίτη μου διαφάνεια.
Κάντε το full screen.
Τώρα το κάνω full screen, okay.
Τη βλέπουμε, ναι, την τρίτη.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Ωραία, τώρα είναι σωστά.
Okay, thank you. You always learn even being an electrical engineer. Okay, so let's move on. So I was telling about that the Council adopted the remit regulation on the electricity market reform. So practically the main elements of the electricity market design that's finally been approved by the EU has the following subjects, the main elements. We have a remit 2, a new exposed market manipulation framework, where Acer has an enhanced role in cross-border and inter-countries issues. Of course, the European Union understood that the consumers should be supported. That's why there is a specific framework about supporting vulnerable consumers. And also the need for having fixed price, fixed term and dynamic contracts, and more clear information to the consumers in order to have all the information available and more transparent before signing. A very important issue is that during the crisis, as you know, this is very important to understand. In the absence of top-down solutions, what practically happened in the EU, bottom-up solutions that were addressed through many countries, mainly the South, in the South Europe, because in the South Europe, the natural gas penetration at this period in the energy mix, in the power mix was high. So there were some initiatives. One was in Iberia, so the well-known Iberia model. One of them was also in Greece. And those type of models finally have been adopted at the European level and became, let's say, regulation. So those type of regulation can be implemented during electricity price in the future. Hopefully it will not happen again, but there is a specific framework that is in place. Of course, the renewables penetration and the storage penetration can be supported through PPAs, but there exists also the CFDs as a scheme to support green electricity. And the capacity mechanisms that were for many years accepted only through specific rules within the DG competition after a specific process through NHOE, Acer, the national regulator, and finally the DG competition. Capacity mechanism become a more structural element on the electricity market to support energy security. So these are the main elements that have been adopted by the European Union. One slide for the UK electricity market design. At the same period, also the UK also issued two discussions on the electricity market design in the UK. In the first one, it was more diverse. Several options were in place, but finally, as you can see in this figure, the REMA, it's called the UK electricity market design scheme, identified, for example, that pay as clear is the optimum solution for the market algorithm. Of course, the same happens in the EU. As you remember, there was discussion also for paid bid to be adopted, but it was never discussed at a high extent from many NRS and Acer. Of course, the second challenge is to support the renewables, and there exists also CFDs and the PPAs the same way that the EU also identified as solutions. And concerning the capacity market, there is also an option there to be established. Discussion about nodal and zonal pricing also took place within the EU and within the UK as well. And although there have some considerable benefits, and this is already implemented in several markets within the state, this has not been incorporated in the European frameworks. During that process, of course, all the NRAs, some of them more actively, some of them less, depending on the situation of the decade, participated in this electricity market design. So at this period, within the Acer, we have identified some key priorities that we consider important for the electricity market design during the crisis and after the crisis. One has to do with the ex-ante dynamic revenue clawback mechanism that has finally been implemented in Greece with revenue clawback to the electro producers based on their technology. And this was a very successful measure towards enhancing social cohesion at this period. We also suggested the ex-ante power mitigation, where we have identified as a detailed analysis was issued by a consultant. It's Alex Pavalexopoulos that will speak tomorrow. And we provided this study. We strongly believe in ex-ante power mitigation, as this happens also in the States. But in Europe, ex-ante power mitigation is not preferable compared to ex-post. That's why REMIT 2 was finally being adopted. Of course, CFDs and PPAs were under our proposal too. And we also have identified the need for a capacity mechanism that was finally being adopted at the end by the European Commission. So please allow me to provide you some information that we consider that is important. Although it has not been adopted by the European Union concerning the ex-ante power mitigation. This study that was performed by ECO International and the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki for the needs of the regulator of Greece. It has been a simulation study using the Atlas software, which simulates the UFIM algorithm. Practically, the vast majority of the countries that you can see with the blue color, using all data from the NHOE transparency platform for selling installed units. As you can see, there are about 1,700 units that have been considered. On all those top units, what we have done We have identified different scenarios. So bids based on their variable cost, the short-run marginal variable cost, and some tolerance based on that, 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, and run the simulations and compare those simulations with the actual results on specific periods of the study. We have also identified that this type of simulation, although it was done at unit-based, in our study, it could be at portfolio-based. So because this is a discussion in EU, there are very few countries that have the unit-based model. Greece is one of them, and proved to be very helpful to be during the crisis. But what they find that this ex-ante power mitigation can also be implemented in portfolio bids, as you can see here, where we identify portfolio order and default energy bids. And the results of this study, please allow me to tell you that we have identified considerable benefits depending on the scenario. As you can see, there are 4 scenarios here. On the left side, you can see a factor A equals to 1.1 or equals to 1.2 up to 1.4. So this is a tolerance 10% to 40%. And as you can see, the benefits are considerable for the simulations that we have done. And we suggested following a thorough study as regulated. As a regulator, we examined the different power market mechanisms, power mitigation mechanisms, mainly in the States as well as in Australia. And we consider that this threshold of 25 euros per megawatt hour could be a threshold on top, above, as well as below the bids on systematic, of course, way, not on every bid. So we identified also how this could be implemented. And we think that this could be coming discussion again in the future. So we don't also examine only this one. We have also a thorough analysis of all market options based on the discussions that we had at this period within the EU. So practically we identified key areas that was important for the electricity market design. So one key area was the wholesale market location. So it was either zonal or nodal that we examined. The second was the wholesale market solution based on the technology, so the split. And you remember that there was this discussion of splitting the markets based on their characteristics. We also examined this option through a specific study. Also, we examined the self-dispatch and central dispatch with and without co-optimization. And we are very happy that we see that Acer now initiated this discussion about co-optimization. And of course, on the right side, you can see the most common characteristics of the market design, which is the mass low carbon generation, the different options that will support the renewables penetration, which are CFDs or PPAs, the capacity mechanism on the right side in the middle, which was finally being adopted by the EU. And as I mentioned before, concerning competition, besides the ex-post monitoring improvements in the remit that was finally being adopted, we also made a study, as I mentioned before, about ex-ante power mitigation. So we tried to support the EU and the Acer through this process with all this information. And moreover, it happens that me as a professor with a colleague of mine, I have also worked on the optimization, developing a mathematical framework, extending the euphemia algorithm and enhancing optimization of energy in reserve markets, and which we also submitted to Acer supplementary towards enhancing its work on optimization. So all this work that all NRAs, including us, have done to support the decision making in the EU has finally led to, let's say, this slide, which summarizes the main decisions. Practically, for the wholesale market location discussion, zonal pricing has has been extended as the basis of the solution within the EU. Nodal pricing, although had some considerable benefits, has not been adopted by the EU. Of course, you know that the marginal pricing was retained, so pay as bid is out of the discussion, both in the EU as well as in the UK, and the same also happened with the market technology split, so practically splitting the market into solutions that was opt-out in both the EU and the UK. Concerning the dispatch, as I mentioned before, and you have also, I think, one presentation tomorrow about this issue. It's good that Acer examines the optimization of balancing capacity market and day-ahead markets. So we're strongly supporting this initiative, and we hope that this can be adopted. Concerning the mass low carbon generation, of course, PPAs and CFDs are the two preferred options for supporting the penetration of renewables, but I will speak later on of what are the problems this creates in the market. Capacity mechanism is becoming an element of market design, as it already happens in other markets in the States, for example. And the concerning competition, although we strongly believe on ex-ante power mitigation solutions, this has not been adopted, and the REMIT 2 has been approved with an enhanced role of Acer on issues that has to do with cross-border trades. All these issues, of course, create challenges in each country, and as an NRA in Greece, we see that we have some challenges that exist to be completed. One of them is that complete some reforms that we have already, some tasks that we have already identified in the market reform plan. As you probably know, we adopted a target model quite late in 2020, the last one in the EU. But very fast we have made the market coupling with all European neighbors, and we have identified some market reform plans that has been implemented in major extent, and this is you can identify this in the National Climate and Energy Plan that was submitted, the draft one in last October by the Ministry of Energy in Greece to the European Commission, where there were no comments specific for the market reform plan within Greece. Of course, a very important issue, not only for Greece, but also for the other TSOs, is that the TSO to join the market Picasso platforms, there is a postponement that was planned to do in 24th of July this year. So that will be postponed for some months for this joining, starting from the automatic and then to the manual FFRR. A very important issue that is in discussion in Europe as well as within the NRA in Greece is to enhance the TSO-DSO coordination. We made some progress also there, which is facilitated by the fact that the DSO has completed the dispatch centers, almost completed. Some of them will be completed in the next months. So those dispatch centers by the DSO could be interconnected then with the DSO dispatch center, was enhancing their cooperation and to have a common identification of reserves, and then to see how these reserves will be remunerated and under which market schemes. The Hellenic Energy Exchange has a short delay on implementing a RES PPA platform. We have identified different PPAs, RES PPA models that could be work. Finally, with the cooperation with the Hellenic Energy Exchange, some products are now being considered of what type of products could be created in order to match supply and demand. And the Hellenic Energy Exchange plans to implement this by within this year. In the market reform plan, it was to be completed in Q1 2024. We'll have a few months delay on this issue. A very important issue for us is that we have an active role in the Western Balkans to support our neighbors and neighboring systems, Albania and North Macedonia, towards adopting common CCR rules and integrating our markets. So we have some progress there after many years, and we are confident that we could enhance this market coupling in the region. But also, there are some commitments that exist not only for the Greek NRA, but also for all European NRAs, which is the Big Bang 15 minutes MTU implementation next year, which is a major issue concerning, of course, IT systems and also on the market simulations. And as you probably saw from the previous slides, based on the fact that the capacity mechanisms are now a preferable option for the market design, and as well as co-optimization potential in the future, these two options might also be in the discussion for being implementation also within Greece in the next years. Of course, as you know, the major issue, especially for the countries like us, the where we had rapid REST penetration over the last year, is that this provides some benefits, which is it's a competition, elimination of wholesale prices. In the past, the Greek wholesale price was usually for about 20 years one of the first two most expensive ones were together with the Italian price. Now we have this, we are usually in the 9th or 10th place within the wholesale prices because of this competition and penetration of renewables. So in that sense, because our major role is to support consumers, we're very happy. But this creates some uncertainty, especially for the renewables project. For us, it creates very clear price signals, as you can see on the right hand side, on the right side of the presentation, for investments in storage as well as in demand side. While renewables could be offset their uncertainty through becoming hybrid project with storage, or through long-term contracts, etc., or through finding new electric demand. Please allow me to discuss this last slide on the first issue about the EU electricity market design. So we see that the competitive renewables electricity paved the way for investments in other technologies, and we see some major pillars where this could happen. Of course, electricity storage is one option where the batteries and the hydro pumping is already in place. We issued some auctions for batteries, and they were very successful in the sense that they were high competition, and they were very happy that we see prices go down with the relevant auctions. So this is one clear option for the market evolution. The second one, of course, is demand response and shifting. Surely the demand that has smart meters and the capability to shift the demand, like the industrial demand or the big medium voltage and low voltage consumers that can shift their demand during the hours where we have plenty of photovoltaics production, and we already see some of this shifting. And we expect the next years through the penetration of the smart meters that this could happen also to the residential consumers in the end. Something that we strongly believe is that, and this is part of the energy transition, which says that we are moving to deep electrification on many sectors, including the transport, for example. So the electric vehicles are already penetrate, and also the new a lot of charging stations are being installed in many countries, as well as including Greece. For this specific one, we have developed a specific software app platform within our website, chargingcost.gr, where you can find all available charging stations and their prices and their routing to them through Google Maps, which is quite useful for the final consumers. Something that is also very important that we issued an initiative 2 years ago, and as well as the DSO is working on that, is that because there's a European regulation that all ships that come to European ports of specific categories like ships for cruise, etc., have to be cold, have to install cold iron, namely to be electrified when they are in the ports. We have examined and identified that the electric demand could be also done in the ports. You probably don't know that a big cruise ship is about 20 megawatts big. So it's quite big demand. And for example, the Piraeus port has 11 slots for cruise. So it's about 200 megawatts. So it's a big demand that could take place in few months in the summer. So this could absorb some of the competitive electricity price of photovoltaics. Of course, heat pumps and data centers are also some other options for increasing the electricity demand in other sectors. Hydrogen, there is a lot of discussion, as you know, within Europe about hydrogen. We're responsible on that, and we're doing step by step. There are plenty of projects within Greece about green hydrogen and blue hydrogen. Blue hydrogen in some industrial sectors absorbing CO2 from methane. While there are also some green hydrogen options projects that have planned to be implemented. We see some potential for green ammonia and methanol, so hydrogen to be transposed to ammonia and then to be transferred in the places where there is demand for those commodities. So there's some potential, not in the near future, but surely we will try to support the government on this, on creating the framework and not to create any regulatory barriers on this issue. A very important issue that is also defined in the European framework, as you can see on the right side, is that we see that the networks, electricity, hydrogen, gas, and thermal, as well as data because of the IT, are integrated. So in that sense, the digitalization helps on this, and this helps also the optimum working operation of the different networks, as well as the decision makers, the decision by the regulator or the ministries towards eliminating stranded assets projects. So these are, let's say, the discussion about the EU electricity market design and how we see it as a Greek regulator, how we supported the discussion, and what are the main elements and challenges that exist within Greece towards implementing the new framework. Please allow me also to go to the second bullet of my presentation, which concerns the development of a consumer place, how we call it. It's a number of digital services that we have developed for the final consumers. And this also helps to transform the nature of the regulator from a B2B to B2C to R2C, as we call it, regulatory to consumer. This was not, to be frank, in our mind from the beginning, but during the crisis, we have defined that in order to move on, we have to be closer to the consumer, and through digitalization, this helped us our work. So practically, if you go to our website, it's both in Greek and Hellenic as well as in English, most of those digital services. We have a number of digital services for energy consumers as well for energy markets. For the energy consumers, there are 8 available digital services. Let's say that there are 3 generic categories. One category has to do with complaint systems, either submitting complaints like the MyRAI for those that are familiar, or the energy ombudsman, which is a continuation of that, or the whistleblowing that will be issued very soon. So this one category. The other is to help the consumers to find the available tariffs. So have 3 options for comparing electricity prices and also electricity prices for charging for the electric vehicles. And one other category for energy efficiency for supporting consumers, understanding their bills and the consumption of the electric appliances, and to implement energy efficiency improvements at their homes. So this is for energy consumers. And for energy markets, we have also a number of digital services, which is mainly for monitoring in wholesale and retail markets, both for electricity and gas, as well as for licensing of renewables and storage. So all of this, please allow me, you can find it in our website. So these are the 8 tools I mentioned you before. But it's something that is very important for us. We have already been awarded 9 awards from the 10 in the history of the regulator about those digital services. But these consumer places, it's not it's something that has a specific coherent characteristics. So what we say is that in the same way, for example, that a company like, for example, Uber or Airbnb that do not assets, Uber do not own assets, taxis, or do not own assets, Airbnb, they engage market players. So they create a marketplace engaging consumers and the asset owners and create a marketplace. In the same way, we say that we engage citizens creating consumer places through bringing in contact the final consumer with the energy companies, with all these tools we have developed. That's why we call it consumer place, and we have applied for a digital innovation within OECD, and we hope that this could be considered as an option of innovation. All these tools, I don't want to say more on these tools, just to show the way we are thinking. The most important is that those tools help the decision making. As you can see, for example, the complaints tool that we have developed, which gets a complaint from a consumer, and this is automatically being transferred to the energy provider, to the retailer, or to the network provider. There's 3 requests. The consumer has 3 times the option to ask again. And this also helped us to have an understanding of the complaints of the different categories. And as you can see during the crisis, and this is in 2022, we can see the rapid increase of the complaints and where we finally intervened and create a report on windfall revenues. And then directly you can see a rapid decrease of the complaints, because after this report from the regulator, a next post and the next ante revenue clawback mechanism was issued. Now, of course, the complaints are much smaller. For example, in the crisis, as you can see, there were about 2,000, almost 2,000 complaints per month. Now they are less, they are about 300 per month. And this is very important. About 10% of those complaints, the final consumer is not satisfied. So for those consumers that are not satisfied, we have created the Energy Ombudsman, which is an online service, so the consumer can go to an arbitration under the auspices of the regulator, and we have already issued some decisions on that. So this means that we follow what's making in the market and helps our decision making, and also help the consumer to feel that the regulator is active and sees all of the problem in real time. Something else that we also starting to we done, and it's also a very difficult issue. As you know, in areas like in Greece and Balkans as well, and in South Europe, there is no so much trust in let's say institutions, in governments. It's for me it's an issue of culture, I would say. So in that sense, there are people that have complaints because they don't understand the bill, etc. And what we have done is that we have created a retail billing database where I gather all the data from the final from the retailers, from the providers. So it's about 7 million meters that are being built every month. And we gather all of this information, aggregate it in 92 fields. So to have all type information and have a validation system of estimating those outputs in order to see if there was a wrong estimation. This is a big data. For 1-2 months, it's about 1 terabyte data. So it's a huge, it's a big database. We like, as you understand, digitalization and IT. And now this database is operational. It's not fully implemented in the sense that it's not automatic and in the extent that we would like to, but it's something that we believe that is useful. It is also important to understand that when the retailers see that the NRA is active and, for example, gathers all the information, is very careful. So even if we don't identify one issue from this database, we know that there is effect. We have already defined there is effect that the retailers are very careful because all this information are within the regulator. So this type of digitalization helps a lot the work of the regulator and enhances the confidence, we think, between the consumer and the institutions. I don't want to go in more detail in all these tools, and maybe this one is quite useful on the charging cost, where you can find all the available charging stations within Greece and their prices and select one and the routing for them. So this is also useful for the final consumers. And this is electricity cost calculator also provides a very good understanding of the efficiency of the consumption of each electric device at home, and also have an energy saving guide tool, the building energy saving. Please let me know in order to understand the way we are thinking. For example, this is a tool where you can choose, we can say what is your home at which geographical area, if it's a flat or not, what is the insulation, etc., and have some options for you. We think that this is very useful, but it's pathetic in that sense. We want to have engage the consumers, as I mentioned before. So now we're extending this, so creating like a marketplace where once we identify, for example, that the market that I'm at my home, I could do an energy efficiency solution like changing insulation or changing lighting to LED, then to match all the available ESCOs, energy system providers, and to help the consumer to match and to find a solution, so as to be more active. So we are now extending this digital service to come to do it as one-stop shop for helping the consumers. So to sum up, concerning electricity market design, as I mentioned before, we finally have a new framework in Europe where the basic characteristics is an improved REMIT 2 for market transparency. Of course, Europe understands that the consumers should be better protected, especially during the crisis. And concerning the penetration of technologies, PPAs, CFDs, as well as capacity mechanisms are options that are in place for each member state to be used. Please also let me know that there are other options that have been assessed during the crisis, as you know, and there is a potential of adoption of co-optimization that is also under discussion in your conference. Sorry, yeah. And concerning Greece, the second part of this slide, You can see that for the challenges of the Greek wholesale market, we have few issues to complete for our market reform plan, which is mainly concerning the TSOs and DSOs and their interconnection. We strongly believe in the market coupling in the area with the Western Balkans. Sorry, there is some potential implementation of capacity mechanism optimization. The prices, the wholesale prices for us, they create clear price signals towards storage and demand response. So it's those the investments have a better future compared to others because it's the signal provider. Sorry, there's a change in my slide. And the final bullet is that during the crisis, we have identified that creating digital services for the consumers and creating this consumer place help our role and practically improve our role and our nature and transforming the regulator nature from B2B to R2C. And we think also improves the confidence of the consumers as well as the work of the regulators. Thank you for your attention. I hope you could follow because I had some technical problems, but I hope it was useful for you.
Oh, perfectly useful. Thank you, Thanasis. Questions for our top regulator?
Hello, Dimitris Papadaskalopoulos from the University of Patras. Thanks a lot for the presentation, first of all. And I just wanted to ask regarding one of the issues you mentioned towards the end, so demand flexibility, demand response in general. And what is your view in RAI around two mechanisms for motivating, for mobilizing demand response? One is the dynamic pricing. So we are waiting now for the so-called orange pricing scheme to be deployed, but also regarding regulated charges, whether you consider options to make also the regulated charges for the distribution transmission network more dynamic. And the second mechanism is explicit demand response. So whether you consider or explore, for example, flexibility services, flexibility markets at the distribution level.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Very good questions. Both of them are to the point. So concerning, of course, for the demand response, the existence for smart meters is needed in order to shift the demand. And now also, you probably know that there are about 360,000 meters that will be installed within the year. The smart meters project has finally been moved on after many years in the courts. So those smart meters will be installed in big consumption. So this will allow them to change their consumption pattern in the near future. So in that sense, dynamic tariffs can be provided to those consumers. As it is can be provided to the big industrial consumers. So this is something that can happen in the next months, but not for the final consumers, the residential, because of the absence of smart meters in their demand. Please let me know also, because we're discussing about incentive regulation, a decision that we made over the last years that is very important. You probably know that in Greece we have about 10% of losses at the DSO level. Technical losses are about 5%, and 5% are non-technical losses, so thefts or whatever, let's say. So this 5%, we approved the implementation of the smart meters, so it's about 1.2 billion euros project, and we said to the DSO that he has a roadmap to decrease the losses every year. So let's say from 10% to 9.5%, 9, 6, etc., up to 5%. And if the DSO does not meet the intermediate targets, so if the target, let's say, is 7.5% and the DSO has losses 7.8%, he will pay for this 0.3 difference. The final consumer will pay for the 7.5%. So it's an incentive regulation. If he goes to 7.3 instead of 7.5, he will gain this 0.2% because it provides benefits. So this is one option for helping reducing the losses, but as well helping dynamic tariffs to come on. Concerning the demand flexibility, the TSO and DSO. As you know, and there are different models of TSO, DSO coordination. You understand that the regulators fight with the network operators, and of course, because this is our role to put some limits there, and the TSO, DSO have to cooperate. So it's there is no clear model which model is better concerning the TSO, DSO coordination. But practically what is being needed is that the TSO now is being explored and to be implemented, that the TSO will gather all information from DSO, the dispatch centers, in order to have optimum identification of reserves needed, and then to see how this will be exploited. We're not at this level, to be frank, of identifying the reserves at the DSO level and how to exploit assets at the DSO level, let's say storage assets, for example, to provide this service. But we pressure the TSO, DSO to complete the platform of coordination, to identify the reserves at the two levels, and especially for MFRR, and then this to see how this will be remunerated in the market. So I can't respond to you on when will this happen. Step by step, let's first create the TSO, DSO coordination, then move on. I hope I answered your questions.
Indeed, thank you, Thanasis. Any other questions for Professor Dagoumas? Maybe I can raise two of my own. So we had a workshop on Monday on presenting the quantification of the benefits of optimization of balancing capacity and energy on behalf of Acer. So according to our calculations, these can reach up to 1.3 billion euro per year for the core region. And then we got a 20-minute panel where the representatives of TSOs, power exchanges, and Eurelectric laid out a number of reasons why all of this cannot be done. So I'm wondering to what extent, what's your view on the topic, and to what extent you feel that this is a technically infeasible way forward, or whether these reactions are maybe somewhat exaggerated?
Well, to be frank, it's an issue of leadership and effective result. We strongly believe that, and I personally believe that Acer should have a strong role on that and not wait for the EU and the DG Energy to decide on electricity market design. So technical issues like optimization has considerable benefits, and if somebody believes on that, to support on implementing it. It's not easy solutions because there are 27 members, 27 NRAs, and the implementation takes several years, that's true. And the EU has already done a lot of progress. So this market integration and that happened in Greece later on, but in other countries previous on, we made tremendous progress in Europe on this. So Europe is not willing to make radical changes. Or, of course, it's not needing a radical change. For me, optimization is not a radical change. is a logical move and has considerable advantages. It provides more reliable solutions to the day-ahead market. Mathematically implementing, it's an issue of the solution of the the algorithm. I don't see an issue on IT or the resources to be implemented. Of course, every decision has as we call first level of regulation, second level of regulation, where it has been to adopt it, different levels, technical decisions, etc. It will take some time. So even let's say that we decide this year that we move on, it will take at least 2-3 years to be finally implemented to all member states. So these decisions are not easy. But if you believe and you have ambition to do it, we can do it. So it's an issue of leadership for me.
Great, thanks, Thanasis. And then maybe one more question on my side. We did a survey these past few months of pan-European flexibility platforms for TSO-DSO coordination or just mobilizing distribution level resources. And what came at least to me as a surprise was the great diversity of network regulation regimes in Europe. And it seems like to be very strongly correlated with how fast-paced the developments are for flexibility platforms, especially commercial ones in different parts of Europe. I may be wrong in this, but I think the case is currently that we have a CapEx remuneration regime for distribution networks. And to me, this seems like a kind of dead end in terms of mobilizing the distribution system operator, because why would they go for a flex platform if they don't get remunerated for their expenses on it? They have missing money from that. And then at the same time, if they get remunerated for capital expenditures on network expansion, they're even killing their revenue base. So there's a twofold question here. One is, from talking with some Italian colleagues, we got the impression that there is an EU-wide common network regulation that will be adopted and will be more oriented towards OPEX. So if you can confirm if that's right or wrong, and if not, if there won't be an EU-wide directive, what are the intentions for the Greek market?
Well, I can't speak on the pan-EU because it's an issue of an agreement. So we're not yet there, but there are discussion on this issue. That's true. It's true, as I told you before, that when the discussions, when there are developments from bottom up, like the plenty of options that exist at the DSO level and different flexibility platforms that exist, and those provide have liquidity, these can then become a top-down solution. So in that sense, all the DSO development, DSO flexibility platforms developments could be adopted by the EU if there is a need for that. So for Greece, as I told you, we're not so much sure on this issue. We have now the development of the dispatches from the DSO. The DSO has made some developments over the last years. That's true. It was not in the optimum, let's say, conditions the previous years. So now, once we have this, we can move on their coordination. But we have not gone in detail of their remuneration, how they will support, because we don't have practically a specific, let's say, study on identifying what are the reserves need at the DSO level, what are their assets that could provide this. So there is no specific study on this issue because there is no DSO coordination yet. But please let me know also to add a response to a previous question that I forgot about the network charges. We changed the network charges for the DSO the last years, and we moved from an energy-based 80% energy-based to 90% capacity-based. So it's a huge change, as you know. But when I say capacity-based, I mean also capacity used in specific peak hours. So in that sense, it captures the demand in the system. So it's dynamic. Not, for example, for the residential yet, because there is no smart meters there. But I think it's a very wise decision that we made for the capacity expansion, and it helps also the DSO to identify exactly the capacity needed for the extension for the different new demand, for example, for the storage, or for the electric vehicles, or the electrifying ports. So I think it's a decision that is in good way for the network.
Great, thanks, Anasis. Any other questions for our regulator? Okay, and with that, we will thank you very much for your time. Enjoy Italy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Cheers.